Let's create the parting for our setup. I turned on the bounding box and reduced the hair amount a little bit through the prune feature, so we have a fast feedback in the viewport. Let's go to the last node in our graph and hit the part guides tool in the shelf. What it will do is it adds two nodes, the draw curve and the guide partition. The draw curve gets as input the skin geometry, and that means when you enable this node or select it, you can now paint curves on the geometry and it will project that curve onto the target. Let me go into the options of it and turn on some of the attributes here, change the color to what the curve will look like, change the radius to 1, and in projection we can turn off show guide geometry so we don't see it because it's a little bit annoying. And now when I paint it here, like let's say I start here and paint one which goes down here and then goes down here, so you can see my curve here now, and I also want to have one here which then joins this one, so it comes from behind here and then joins this curve and goes down here. And now we might want to have another one which is just coming from, yeah, let's say right here and goes down this way. I think that's already good. Maybe we can add another one here just to see how it looks like, but I don't like this one. I like it from here, but I think here it should then join this line here, so we then don't get too many lines. All right, that's good. So when we go back to our hair, you might see that nothing happens. And this is because we have to do manual steps. So the only thing that the shelf adds here is this guide partition node. And that guide partition node basically just takes our parting lines and creates some attributes for us. Right now, it only created the parting strength and the parting radius. But what we also want to have is like, well, we need to get the parting lines to work. For that, we need a node called guide group. And this guide group node needs to be in the beginning of our graph. Since what it will do is it will add group attributes to all our hair, which is needed for the parting to work. So after our resample, we add this guide group and we feed that into our frizz length. So now when we check out the guide group, we can see it selects all the hair. And what it does, it creates that primitive group called guides. All right, once we have that, we can go back to our guide partition. And now we throw down a guide process node, because we need to somehow process our information and make a parting deformer. And what we want to use here, let me rename this to parting. What we want to use is a bend deformer. And before I continue here, let's check out our guide partition again and let's see what was done by adding the guide group in the beginning. We now have new primitives on new attributes on our primitive called parting direction and parting distance. And with those two attributes, we can control our parting. So let's go in here. We already set it to bend. Now mode, we need a curve attribute. This is the attribute on our primitives. And when we change it to the one which was created for us, the part direction, you can see parting going on. Let's increase that angle here to something like 30. And now you can see when I turn it off and on that along our curves, there is some parting effects like here and here. The issue is right now it gets applied on the whole head, like on every single hair. And we need to somehow create a mask which controls in which area the parting actually takes place. Good thing is, as mentioned before, there is another attribute called parting distance. Parting distance is simply when you have the parting curves here, each hair got a distance to that curve, and we can use that distance to calculate an attribute which can be used as a mask. So let's do that by throwing down a wrangle node, an attribute wrangle. Let's throw this in between our guide group and our parting, and call this attribute wrangle parting mask. All right. And in this one, we say we want a new attribute called parting mask, which equals something. For now, it's 1. And we want that to run over the primitives and not over the points. And now let's see. So about the distance. Think about a hair which is directly on the curve, got a distance of 0. So the value of the parting distance attribute is 0. The further it is away from the curve, the higher that value will be. So like 0, 5, 1, 2, whatever. So let's get this attribute here. It is called part, I think it's part dist. I think it's part dist, but let's check it. Part dist, yes. So part dist. And let's use this mask here in our parting, in our masking input. We created it as a guide attribute, and here we say parting mask. And when we go back to shaded view, actually, it shows us something else too. So I wonder, okay, now it works. So the mask is wrong now, like everything on the curve is black and everything else, the effect is applied. This is because, like we said, the closer it is to the curve, the smaller the value is. So instead, we want to have something like 1 minus parting distance. But that doesn't work because parting distance can be bigger than 1. So we have to clamp this value to something useful for us. So it's now the value is 1 when it is on the curve or close to the curve, and as soon as the parting distance is 1, the value returned by the clamp is 0. So as soon as the parting distance is 1 or bigger, it's getting clamped to a value of 1. And since we say 1 minus that, we invert the mask, and now we get a parting effect which only happens within a certain area. So you can see that here. Let me quickly turn off the prune feature so we see all of our fur. And then let's talk about how we can adjust our fall off. Right now we got a linear fall off. That means the fall off goes from full like a value of 1 to a value of 0 within the distance of 1. If we want to have more of a fall off, let me paint here like that graph. Right now our fall off is if this is 1 and this is a distance of 1, so this is distance, this is value, then the closer we get to a distance of 1, our value is 0. So that's the fall off we have right now. But what if we want to have a fall off like this here? Like something like this? Or if I may paint this like something where we first have like a strong effect and then we get a fall off towards 1. If you want to create something like this, we can use the function we did use before already, which is ck-spline. So let's go back in our attribute wrangle, and let me go down here, copy this here, and instead of clamp we use ck-spline, and we say we want to have a value of 1 at a distance of 0 until 0.2. So now, and a value of 0 at a distance of 1, right? So now at a distance of 0.2 or less, we will have a value returned of 1, and a distance of 1, we will have a value of 0. So now we can use this here, and this will create a different for loop now for us. All right, so as you can see here, we have a main issue. Our clumping or our parting lines are really messed up, and we need to have cleaner parting lines. First of all, let me check if we can change something here to make it look a little bit cleaner, but I guess we can't. So we simply need to have cleaner parting lines. And I think the first step we can do is to remove some of the features in our graph on the edge of the parting line. So let's go to like the hair clump big here and check out what it's doing. So it clumps a lot here, and especially at the parting line, we might not want that clumping, so we get like a cleaner line there. So we need to find a mask which can control our blend attribute, or like our blend attribute. Instead of the clump mask big, we want to control it also with our parting lines. All right, for that to happen, we need to use this part which we created here. Actually, I think this part, let me check, parting distance should be fine. We can leave that here because it is for our parting, but this part here needs to go way up our graph. So it actually needs to go before our clumping, because this is where we then need it later on to control our clumping. So if I reconnect it here, let's also reconnect that skin here at the VDB. We need that mask, the clump mask big, so we have to add our parting afterwards. And once we got it here, we can add it. Now we have to reconnect the draw curve. It needs the skin as projection. So we also got this here. So we still got our curves. Now when I enable the parting, nothing happens because the parting happens later on. So, but what we can do is, we can do the same as we did here. So let me copy this node. And bring it up to our guide partition here. So if I also add like an in-between here, we have now an attribute wrangle here, and we again got the parting distance, and now we want to say, yeah, but we also need like the clump mask. And the clump mask right now is an attribute on the skin, while our parting distance is an attribute on each primitive. So we have to get the clump mask onto our primitives first. We use a transfer. Attribute transfer when I find it. And we say, okay, from our geometry, to our guides, we want to transfer an attribute. So from points to primitives, and now we have to check here where it is. And it is on our points, and we can take the clump mask big, turn this one off, and now we have, after the transfer, we have it again on our points here. Now we need to get it on the primitives by using a promote, attribute promote. Here we go. So now from point to primitive, that's the We don't delete the original, or do we? Actually we do, because we don't need it on the points anymore. Copy, that's also good. Oh, yeah. So we are good here. We can reconnect it. And now in our attribute wrangle, we can multiply this here. And when we go to our hair clump big and to our clump mask here, instead of skin, we say guide attribute. And now we access the parting mask. Was it called parting? Yes, it was called parting mask. And that should already give us, let me check. That should have given us a different approach here. So let's see again. Oh, yeah, that's wrong. That's actually really wrong what I did. I'm sorry. Because the parting distance we use in the attribute wrangle is created afterwards our guide partition node. So we can delete this guy here, and we need to feed like this. Now you can see the clumping only happens along our parting curves. That is wrong, and we want to have it the other way around. So we just change the values. So now, as you can see, there is no clumping happening along our curves for the parting. And when we go down now to the end of the graph, enable the parting again. I'm sorry, you have to check what's going on. So our medium hair generator throws an error, and it says when using parting lines, a rest attribute is required. So for that to fix, just type in rest, get this rest position node, and on the guides we need to create a rest position. So we just feed this we create this rest position, throw down this node somewhere, and now everything works again, and we can go down to the end of graph, check out our parting, and you can see we get a way cleaner parting going on here along the line. It's still not perfect, so we have to check out how we can improve it. Like this maybe. We have to check how we can improve it. So let's check out our parting here again and what we actually do with our medium clumping, because maybe we can also adjust it here. So when we check out the output for our clumping, we see that a lot is messed up here along our parting lines, and we can use the same parting mask here now to maybe adjust how the clumping of the medium clumping works. So when we say instead of clump mask medium we have here, we can create that attribute wrangle here. Like copy this guy, move it down, and here we say we now use the clump mask medium. So we also have to use the transfer nodes. We used both because we need to transfer that attribute here. So let's just also copy these two nodes here, get them down to this area. So we got our guides to what we want to transfer. We want to transfer from the skin. Then we use this. Oh, sorry. Then we use this as input here. So now we want to transfer our clump mask medium instead of the big one. We get that on our actual fur. We already renamed it here. So we can now say here on the guide attribute parting mask, and that removes the medium clumps from the area where we have parting going on. So check out our parting again. And now we got like really nice lines in here, not too much going on inside. And I think that works out really well. All right, let's clean up our graph. Something like this, move it up a little bit. All right. Also clean this, and we are good to go. So now you saw a way of how we create the parting here. We only need to handle a little bit of the values, like we can reduce that maybe a little bit. We can add some masking, so we can also use the curve. What we want to have is like strong parting on the roots, also on halfway through, and then we want to have like less parting on the tips of our hair, and we move that to a position of like 7.5. Now we have a little bit different parting lines. We can enable this angle a little bit more again, and I think that's fine. So it's just about getting also the parts in here which we had. So let me go back to our draw curve for the parting, and let's see how we actually get that nice detail in here. So if we draw one more parting line here, then we might already get the parting going on here. So if we turn it off now, yeah, almost. Almost. Okay, here we go. So we need to control that angle here a little bit through some sort of like map or so, I would say. So let's just add a skin attribute. We keep the default name which it had there, and let's just paint this, say infrared. We want to apply, we have 90 now, 25 was the value which was good, or 20. So let's say divided by 4 should be our default value we want to apply. And now we want to have a high value in this area, because here we couldn't see it that well. And then from here we fade out. We fade out to the values we need. Apply a smooth, and let's check out what it does now for us. So yeah, we got a high value here. We got that value which we had before, which is fine. So we can even reduce. We can even reduce that a little bit here, I think. To not get such a strong parting going on in this area. Maybe something like this. Oops. And smooth. You can also smooth paint. So when you check out the parting now, it works. We have that parting effect here, like that small one which we wanted. We still have the parting here. We might turn even up the angle again. Something like 110 maybe. Yeah, and let's render this and see how it looks like in our render cam. So we have the render cam like this. Let me use the preview cam which I created. And let's render it like this here. Alright, so here we got our rendering. When we check it out, like here it already works quite well. The parting in this area, it would need to become bigger again, like the angle. And also like, I don't like this one yet, but we will refine it later. Just one thing I would like to refine is that angle we have here, which we already got paintable, luckily. We want to increase it a little bit, so let me get my brush settings, the opacity, the stroke settings. And let's say we want to increase, it's set to smooth, right? Yeah. We want to increase the angle a little bit in this area. So a little bit more here. So it becomes bigger. Like the parting becomes bigger in this middle area and then becomes smaller again down the area. Like the further down it goes the neck. So let's see how the parting looks now. Yeah, we painted a little bit too much downwards. Let me increase the brush a little bit. And decrease the value here again, but increase it up here. This area. Decrease it here a little bit. Let's see what it looks like. Oh yeah, we're getting bigger partings here. I think which is actually quite nice. Now let's smooth this. And let's call this for now. Let's say we are happy for now with this, and one more thing is I want to remove it, parting in this area, since we lost a little bit of the clumping here, and I want to have that in there. So we need to paint here a little bit. Like in this area we want to increase it. But not have it top of the ear. Let's see how that looks like. Yeah, I think this is getting better. We get some issues here because we have two lines, so I want to clean that up. Let me go to our draw curve and check it out. Yeah, so this is the issue here. What we can do actually is we can select this guy and let's see if we can do some, if we can actually do some operation on this one. So what we can do is we can delete some of what we did. Like let's get this guy here, or actually let's delete this guy, and let's see what else we have here. And now we draw some new ones. So in this area we said, and also like in this area we are already fine. We want to join another one here. Let's try it like this here. Oh, something got mixed up here. Let me quickly clean this up. Also like here. Not sure why they got inverted. For some reason they got inverted. So we add the mask and then we paint it. Look at this, also here. They got inverted. I just quickly reorder some of the nodes. Yeah, it's fine. So what I want to say is I deleted some of the curves. So you can just draw your curves, and if you don't like all of them, you can just blast them. It's gonna delete some of them. And now when we go to the bottom again, we have some new parting curves. Let's see how that works now. I hope it's better now. Yeah. So we got two nice parting effects, like big ones here and also here. And you can see it becomes bigger and then it becomes a little bit smaller again because we painted that angle mask. Now what we want to do is we have a little bit too much going on, and we can go into our masking here and adjust this here a little bit. So this value, we bring it to 0.5 instead, and then on the tips bring this to 0.1, and here we can move that even further and say 0.4. And now think on the tips we can have a little bit more. It's just trying out values until they fit. So now we got like a nice clean parting here, I think, which might look decent. So let's keep it like this, and the next step we will do is we will start our setup for the body. So we will take what we have for the head, the same fur description, same graph, and we set up our groom and paint our masks for the body. Probably what we need to do is, since I don't want to duplicate all that graph, we have to go in and paint all our clumping masks and so on. Like the small clumping, as you can see, that already might work like this. And now we have to also adjust all of the other masks we have. So see you in the next video.